And, I remember going back to the negotiations, and they said, that's how we felt then. This is how we feel now. And it was a completely different number with a lot less money because I was hurt, which I understood that. Nowadays, guys tear their ACLs and they're getting paid the biggest contract in the history of the game, which that was never like that. Well, it's time for the Chill Zone, brought to you by Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/GWN. Celebrate responsibly.
I tried to harmonize with you on that. So for this week's Chill Zone, trying out a new segment. A couple episodes ago, you talked in depth recently about what it's like to just in the weeds, nitty gritty, beat by beat details of what it's like traveling for an NFL away game. So a lot of people have been in the comments. They really like that. A lot of positive feedback about that. So we're trying a new segment where I just want you to go super deep into a specific NFL insider conversation. So a lot of the comments have been suggesting, you talked about Brock Purdy, just signing that big deal. Just people want to know a little bit more information in depth about what contracts are like in the NFL and what contract negotiations are going. So high level, give us what contract negotiations are like in the NFL.
Well, contract negotiations in the NFL and contract negotiations I had with the New England Patriots are completely different as I look at it. And they've also changed, which rightfully they should. It's been way more player friendly. I've never I can remember when I got hurt in 2012, the Patriots offered me a contract before the season to sign that I thought that's not and I won the starting job going into that year. They were trying to lock me in for some league minimum deal with a week signing bonus, which I was like, I would rather go to free agency. So we played out the year. And I broke my foot, and then I broke my hand and missed a couple games. I balled out. I had three games where I was balling, and then I broke my foot, and so it got to a sudden halt. So I remember going back after that, and I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, at least I'm gonna get that shitty little contract they offered me, which it'll still be a pay raise, And, I remember going back to the negotiations, and they said, that's how we felt then. This is how we feel now. And it was a completely different number with a lot less money because I was hurt, which I understood that. Nowadays, guys tear their ACLs and they're getting paid the biggest contract in the history of the game, which that was never like that. At least where I was at. They would always say I remember just vividly, when you're negotiating with them, they're saying, we're not paying you for what you've done. We're paying you for what we project you to do, and that's where the differences are in different organizations. I wish it was different. I wish I got it other way, like other guys, but with the Brock Purdy contract,
when renegotiation starts, if you start performing outside of your what they're paying you paying you to project, and you start performing outside of that, what does that look like from a renegotiation standpoint?
Well, it usually, every time I signed a contract, I balled out the first, I feel like I outplayed that contract that year. But I'd have 3 years, we never went back to the table until the last year of your deal. Now it's changed a little bit because of, guys want to lock guys in before the market gets too high, this, that, the other. And guys try to, teams and guys want security. And so sometimes you see guys getting renegotiated with 2-3 years. They'll rip up a contract. That wasn't really, I wasn't a guy that ever dealt with that. With Brock Purdy being a 7th round draft pick, that's something also that I think is a key figure in this deal. I always felt if I was a 3rd or a 2nd round draft pick and I had the same production after my first or my second contract, that I would have got more money. I think, Brock kind of surpassed that. Yeah, he took a little less. What is it, 53?
53 for 5.
But what is it? What's his guaranteed?
Well, that's
money.
something I wanted to ask you about too, is what's the difference between guaranteed and total contract value?
So we'll see his guaranteed money. 180. It's 6 year, 5 years, including this.
5-year, 265 contract extension.
How many years do you have on his deal
2023.
still? This one, so he has 1 year.
So this will go through 2020 or 2030, and he's got 181 million in guarantee with a full no trade clause. Has been reported.
So 181 million over the 6 years. So what's 180 divided into 4?
It's 45.25.
So that's what that is. He's really of real money. That's how I used to look at it. It's 181 divided by either, whatever that number is, a couple years shorter than the contract, because that's kind of like they're out, which that's pretty cheap if you think about it. Now he'll have opportunity to earn more money.
So what is that? That's like incentives?
So that could be built-in escalators, meaning like he has to, like I had a built-in escalator in my contract where I would make like $1 million more or 500 grand more if I had at that time, my high was 105 catches. So if I got to like 90 catches, 1,000 yards, and either 6 touchdowns, like I had to get 3 of that, and then, or we went to the Super Bowl, so I could have 3 of those, and I would get that money. There's incentives. So like that's also like incentives and escalators are kind of in the same boat. I don't know the actual differences. I'm not a cap guy, but same thing. Like if you have like for Brock Purdy, if you play a certain amount of percentage of the year, you'll get an extra $5 million. But a lot of this, what people don't realize, these roster bonuses that are they used to give us roster bonuses.
So what is that?
So the roster bonus is actually in the guaranteed money. So they'll say, here's your roster bonus of, for me, I think it was like $1.5 million or something. I don't know my numbers. You guys will probably be able to look that up. But I had a roster bonus. That goes into your guaranteed money, but it ain't guaranteed. You have to be on the active day roster to get that money. So whatever that was, so say it's $1 million, divide that by 17. How many is that?
Let's just say it's 1.7.
1.7.
So 100K.
You get 100K a game, but say I got hurt and I didn't play in 3 games, I wouldn't collect those 3 checks.
And that comes out of guaranteed money.
That comes out of your guaranteed money. So you got to look into like what his guaranteed money is. There's a lot of ways of, also the guaranteed money could be like you have to be workout bonuses.
And what's a workout bonus?
Workout bonuses, you have to be at 80% of the off-season program in order to collect that money. It kind of incentivizes guys to stay around the team.
So that's the non-mandatory workouts.
Non-mandatory, you have to hit 80%.
Okay, cool. Okay, interesting. So it is kind of mandatory if you want to hit a certain amount of threshold for your money.
Well, if you want to make your money.
Okay.
There's also like, and then also like for linemen or big defensive linemen, like their weight could be negotiated in as a incentive. If this, or if he breaks over this, they could technically take that money away. So there's a bunch of stuff in that guaranteed money, which isn't always guaranteed. So Brock Purdy, I'm sure it went down where he outplayed his contract as a 7th rounder, the first few years. So it was a tough situation to be in because he still had a bunch of years on his deal, and you still wanted to see if it would be able, to continue doing it.
Yeah.
But he got paid. I mean, he didn't get the 60. He got a 5 there. That's what everyone thinks. But really, if you think about it, it's like 4-year 45.
Why only 4 versus 5?
Because you could divide it. It's more of like, what is that? What is 181 divided by 5?
It's 36.2.
I don't know why. I'd always just take off those 2 years, and that's usually kind of how I thought about it.
Because the last years are kind of bullshit years. Either going to get restructured,
you're
renegotiated,
restructured going into those,
or cut, depending on your situation.
Yeah, depending. And I don't know all his incentives for that extra. What is it? 260. The total contract?
Yeah, 265.
So 265. So what's
Minus
the difference between?
It's 84 million.
84 million.
Yeah.
So
that's in all the incentives, roster bonuses, what have you.
That could be incentives. That could be roster bonus. I haven't looked at the details of the contract.
I don't think they're fully out yet either.
That could be anything from like, hey, they could negotiate if he gets MVP, he could get a $5 million in
Pro
bonus.
Bowls, MVPs,
Pro Bowl.
all pros.
You get
statistical hits.
Yeah, anything statistical, and those stats can go crazy. It could be playing time, it could be completion percentage, it could be touchdowns. I mean, whatever you want to negotiate or they want to negotiate, it's just a way for you to try to collect more of that money.
Have you ever heard any like weird incentives? Something that like stuck out, I was like, oh, that was unusual or very specific to a certain player?
You know, the weight ones were always kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, these big boys during the season.
Now, would there be players that maybe are, and I know that you're not like a GM and you're not in the cap, but just from what you've seen and heard or experienced, players that maybe would have been injury prone or perceived to be injury prone, having higher like roster bonuses?
Well, that's what the Patriots used to do a lot of. And then also what they can do is they could put a split in your contract.
What is that?
It was always in all the Patriots rookie deals where it was like non-negotiable. Split is if you get hurt, you only make half your salary.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So separate from even roster bonus, separate from everything. If you tear your ACL in the first snap of preseason.
No, not your guarantee money, but like all your other money. Yeah.
Yeah.
You only get half. They split it.
That's just non-negotiable inside of every single.
Well, it's negotiable in the contract, but
yeah,
it was not negotiable for us.
Gotcha. And something that I think has a lot of people ask a lot of questions about, but how does signing bonus work?
So signing bonus, whatever, it could be divided. So that say Brock got a what was his signing, but maybe $50 million. Say
176 million injury guarantee.
170 over his first 4.
He receives 62% of his money in the first 3 years.
So see how I said 4 years?
Yeah.
So 170 over his first 4. That means there's only an additional $9-10 million for that next. So you would cut. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and part of that's playing games with the cap too.
Probably. I'm not a cap guy.
Yeah,
but yeah, usually they divide the signing bonus by. That's why they'll make big signing bonuses, because they can prorate that and divide that over the length of your contract.
Okay.
Towards the cap.
Okay. Salary cap. Signing bonuses go against cap too.
Yeah, it's less. It's like less. That's how they can make the money down. That's why they'll renegotiate and give guys a bunch of money in the signing bonus, because then you can prorate it throughout the duration of the contract.
Okay, and then
but let's go back to we were talking about signing bonus.
Yeah,
signing bonus. It's not like depending on team.
Okay,
say it's Brock Purdy's $50 million sign, they could divide that over 3 for the owner. You know, so on signing day they'll give him 20 million. And then in October, they can give them 10 million. And then the next following year, they can give them another 10. Now, you do that for tax reasonings. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the owner can do that, because sometimes they just don't want to give you all that money right away.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
With. And then so functionally, you sign a contract, you get your prorated signing bonus. Maybe it's half or a third or whatever. Is that just a check, or is that like going into your like pay system? How does that actually?
So a lot of guys have direct deposit. We didn't actually have that choice until like the 3rd or 4th year of my year.
Really?
Or my second year.
Well, you just get a check. You have to cash it.
You get a check that you'd have to cash, and which is, you know, if guys didn't cash a check, that means the owners kept that money in that pot, and they could earn interest on that bitch.
Yeah.
So that's why you go to direct deposit, you get that money right away.
So you're like rolling up your rookie year, rolling up with a check.
The crazy thing is, out of that 20 million that he's going to get, you're going to get that check, and it's only going to be about 12, 11
taxes and all
taxes.
That
and then you got to pay the agent, whatever his agent fee is, usually 3, can be negotiated down, but it's usually 3%. So, you know, it's a lot.
So that's how you get the signing bonus. All this other stuff, roster bonus,
that's all divided.
Incentives.
So then there could be other stuff. You have a roster bonus. That's another way of them to giving you $1 million, you know, during the season, or guaranteed 2 million, 5 million, 10, whatever that is, they can give you through the season. Then they can give you the workout bonus, which is also guaranteed money in the guaranteed money thing. But that also, you know, incentivizes you to be around the facility. You got to be at the off season, you know, all that stuff.
So then what's in the game check?
Game check is the additional salary that you have divided into set 18 weeks, and you get paid every first 15th.
And you don't get any additional money for playoffs, right?
You do get additional money, but it's technically we're getting blown out.
Yeah.
As players, because we're playing for less.
Everyone gets paid the same amount.
You get an additional. So like when I was playing, you for the first round, you would get an additional like 20 grand, 25 grand to the winner, 20 grand to the loser. And the next round, you could get like an additional 30 grand. But then like we would get the first round bye, have to do all the same amount of work and not get paid.
Because the bye, you don't get paid for
You
the
don't
bye.
get paid during the bye. You only get paid during the game.
Wow.
And it was really 20 grand. And at that time, I was making like 100 grand a game through my contract. So you're putting in the same amount of work for way less money. And the league is benefiting crazy through the playoffs with the ratings and everything.
So how much like total?
So like
you
at the total you make, if you won the Super Bowl, it'd be like 180 grand.
And that's if you don't have any of the escalators, any of the
No, that's just all new money coming from the league.
The 53rd man on the roster makes that money if you go to the Super Bowl.
The 53rd and maybe I think even the practice squad, everyone in everyone in the organization does, I think.
So making a Super Bowl.
It's a big thing for like the trainers and the coaches. It's huge. It's great. But like on the scale of like
the top dogs are taking huge pay cuts to play.
Tom Brady usually gets $2 million a fucking game.
Yeah.
He's working, wherever it is. You know what I mean?
He's getting paid the same as
get $50 million a year.
They're getting paid
now he's going to go play for 20 grand, 30. It's probably like 50 grand now.
Yeah.
But
they're getting paid the same as the long snappers, the quarterback.
Same as the long snapper, which it's additional money. You never want to be, you want to be thankful. But, the work you put in, if we're talking workplace here, I mean, the stress levels are even higher.
Right.
The work is, you're putting in way more work during the playoffs because you're just that much more invested, like time, everything.
It's heightened
emotion.
And the cost for commercials go way up too. A lot more money being generated.
A lot of money generated. But, congratulations to Brock, man. That's cool seeing a 7th round guy get a big payday, regardless of what you think he deserves or doesn't. As a former player, you always like seeing guys get paid, especially a guy that went his route, which, I was a 7th round guy. He's a 7th round guy. Now he's making $54 million a year.
Not bad. Not bad for Mr. Relevant.
Not even a 1-star, not a 0-star, first pick overall. I'm a story guy. Like the story. Now, is the team going to be good? Don't know. But if you think about it, for the Niners, they'll have to eat a bunch of this for these next couple years, which they're kind of rebuilding right now. And if you look at Brock's contract in 2 years, it's going to be cheap. It's kind of like the Daniel Jones shit. Like everyone's like, Daniel's making $30 million. What the heck? Well, all right. In 2 years, the next guy was making 50.
Yeah. The lessons learned, if there's ever a guy who needs to get paid real money, pay him as soon as you can because it instantly becomes value.
He didn't take the top dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you think about Brock Purdy, if you put yourself in his position, you're sitting there saying like, well, Dak Prescott, he's got one playoff win, maybe 2, I think. I've taken a team to an AFC championship. We've gone to a Super Bowl. We have playoff wins, and that's what you really judge on the quarterback. How many wins he got? So you could see what his side was arguing to get that money. And
2 wins.
Yeah, you got 2. You could say the same thing for all the other big dog quarterbacks. I think he's got more playoff wins than Burrow.
Burrow did go to a Super Bowl.
So did Brock.
Still, yeah, right. You're right.
Brock went to the Super Bowl.
You're right.
And Brock also went to an AFC or NFC championship where he hurt his arm, remember?
Yeah.
So like Brock's got some merit when you're talking about winning games. Now, regardless of what you want to say, how the team's going to be.
Now, do you think if Purdy was a first-round pick or,
completely different,
he gets that
if
break?
If Purdy was a first-round pick, he probably would have got $68 million.
Yeah. He's one of those contracts that sets the new standard for quarterbacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
One last thing on this, because I think this was great. One time years ago, I was at your house back in Foxborough, and you were like going through some like junk mail. And you just opened up like a check for like a couple $100,000 or something. I think it was from jerseys. What are some of the other ways that you get paid that aren't like endorsement deals?
There's player performance, which is huge for guys that get like Brock, like set late round guys, undrafted guys, which they've changed it in this new CBA collective bargain agreement. But when I was there, if you were a 7th round guy, you were getting more playing, there was like a formula on playing time and plays per game that you would make a lot more money than if you were a 1st round guy in this pool of money.
That's coming from like the NFLPA?
Yeah, coming from the NFL. I forgot where it comes from. We got to probably hit up Matthew Slater on that because he's the former rep for the PA. Yeah, there was a pool of money that they would have, and it was a way to give guys that, 7th round guy that was playing 80% of the snaps. He could take. I remember like Devon Bess when he was a receiver. He was making like $2-3 million off that player performance because he was undrafted and he was balling out.
And it's upwards of a few million
if you play a lot.
Yeah,
and like I don't know what it is now, but those were back when I was playing. I think it changed a little. That was like a fund of something where they were pulling money in and they would distribute to the players. There's also other ways of earning money.
Jersey sales.
Like, so when you sign up for the PA, you're basically signing and giving away your name and likeness.
Yeah.
For the brand of players. So with that, you get a check. Everyone gets a check for like 10 grand for being in Madden or whatever it was at that time, or 5 grand. And then anything that's sold with your name on, you get a percentage of. So like that was after, I had a huge jersey sale year. They always give you like whatever it is, the cents on the dollar that you get for it could be like a half a cent, but you collect money, mugs, whatever they have
with
Patriots,
your name on
jerseys, this jersey, anything with your name that has sold, you do get a cut of a baby sliver of that.
And that's all through the NFLPA.
And I still get checks for that. I'll get like 8-cent checks because like, so there was like 100 something of mine or like something sold.
Hell yeah.
I'll get like an 8-cent check from the PA.
That's awesome. It's like the actors getting residual checks. That's awesome. Cool. Is there any other things we missed from just like things the average fan wouldn't know where money is coming in from a contract perspective?
I mean, there's probably more, but why don't you guys ask us more questions, detailed questions in the comment section, and we can get into it more.
Hell yeah.
I'm not like just fucking brainiac smart where I could just, oh yeah, back in that day, I remember this, that. Like, who we should bring in Matthew Slater and do like a rules and regulation podcast for the NFL.
I love that.
Let's do rules, because Bill used to sit us down like every year in training camp, the first night of training camp, we go over all the rules.
Nothing that you can light on fire in team hotels.
If anything lights on fire in the team hotel, it could be conduct detrimental. It was basically explaining all the rules that could take away your money. If you're fat and overweight, you'd be like, it's 600 pounds per day,
per pound per day,
per pound per day, whatever. It's probably like $1,000 now. It used to be when I first got it, like 380. Then it got up to like 600. You know what I mean? The more money you make, the more they can take. They can take your money through fines on, uniform infringement. I used to get fined all the time if my knee pads were higher and my skin was showing and my socks didn't go up. You would get fined for that, or certain pads you could get if you didn't have your thigh pads. When I first played, you didn't have to have thigh or knee pads.
Yeah,
and they put that in where you get fined if you didn't have that. I didn't wear them for like my first 2 years. You can get fined for the length of your towel. You can get fined for other like non-NFL issued attire on the sideline. Technically, you can get fined. So if you're like promoting like your own brand that's not associated with the NFL, you could get fined. Like certain celebrations, fine.
Well, we should save that for another one of these segments.
Fine day.
A fine one of these segments would be great. I think it's a great segue too to be like, hey, fans, audience, comment what detailed types of explanation of inside NFL information would you like, because this is a fun segment. I think it's
so
cool.
when I scored that touchdown to break the record for the Patriots over total punt returns, I threw the ball into the crowd. I hucked it up in there, and I got fined like hella money because you're not allowed to throw the ball in the crowd because it could create a riot. But if you hand the ball, it's okay. You can't.
You can
throw
hand
the ball,
but you
you
can't
can hand
throw?
the ball, but you can't throw the ball.
But will they charge you for the cost of the Duke if you hand them the ball?
No. Well, yeah, you have to pay for the Duke anytime you take the Duke. I think that's payroll deduct. So like everything is payroll deduct. Nothing is free, by the way.
Did you have to
In
pay for
NFL,
these balls?
those tickets? Payroll deduct. If you broke something if you broke the weight room, payroll deduct. If you broke something, payroll deduct. They take that money as much as they give it.
Did you giving the jerseys away? You get paid for that? Did you have to pay for these
Anytime
balls?
you give jersey swap, you're paying like $400, $350, $250 for that.
What about like a sentimental ball, like a touchdown that you keep? Do they give you that?
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's payroll deduct.
Now, is that just your organization or was that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
we'll
know.
have to ask that when we have some other people.
Yeah, but I threw it up in the crowd. I remember I used to have to go to these hearings, and Merton Hanks was always the fucking fine hearing, and I used to try to butter him up every single time. Came and talked to me in high school. I loved his little neck thing he used to do, right? You know, and he's a fucking San Francisco 49er. I'd always butter him up every time. He would never fucking reduce my money. I think he reduced it once. My agent, we got that one reduced because it was like military service day. And my agent Dubes is like, you know, Julian was really throwing it to a Navy guy that he saw. And it's like literally like 200 yards up.
Well, they saw your college tape, so.
They knew it wasn't going there. But we did get that reduced. So thank you, Mr. Hanks.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, that was a great segment. We'll do that more. That was awesome.
That was fun. And that's the Chill Zone. Thanks to our favorite beer, Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/GWN and celebrate responsibly.